Hi, my name is Patrick O'Brien. I'm a real estate agent in Chicago with Dreamtown Realty, and today I am with Matt Rosen, Senior Loan Officer from Neighborhood Loans. Thank you, Matt, for having me.
Thanks for coming here. We appreciate it. We've been
Yeah.
trying to get you on for a while and really like talking to you and
Yeah.
hearing what you've been doing differently and how we can assist and what we're doing
Thank you.
differently.
I have a few questions. We're going to cover a lot of topics, so I'm excited. The first one is, what trends are you currently seeing in the mortgage industry?
Rates have kind of teetered off. I mean, they're upper sixes, low sevens, generally speaking. So we kind of feel that buyers have now gotten used to it. There was a shock period for a while where they're like, my God, I saw 3% and I see 7. And now when they hear that, it's not so much, I got to wait. I'm fearful of rates. I want them to come down. It's more like, this is the new norm and we're hopeful that it comes down, but we're not going to quite the same way let it stop us from moving forward and buying new places. So I feel like the kind of scared buyer has now learned that this is kind of the new normal.
The taking off of that, do you think that the incoming president has also shocked people a little bit with the changes that are happening and whether buyers and sellers are stopping?
I don't think stopping really. I think it's a mixture. Some maybe yes, and then some are kind of hopeful, thinking that maybe cuts in the government will help with inflation, and then there's others that are scared that tariffs will increase. And so I feel like it kind of evens itself out because there's some on both sides. And I think it's more like people that have been waiting for several years are now getting that itch where they're like, you know what, it's not coming down. I should be buying or I'm going to miss out. And then others that see good opportunity are going to be buying anyway. So I kind of feel like we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence in that. And leads have come up. We're seeing a lot more pre-approvals in the last like 3 to 4 weeks or so. So I kind of feel like people are at least looking that way.
That's exciting for the spring market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What challenges do you see that first-time homeowners face, and how do you overcome it?
A lot of times it's down payment. They're like, well, I don't have enough money, or they don't know that they don't need 20% down. So a lot of it's education. A lot of it is just budgeting properly. And then the other thing is, a lot of them don't plan ahead of time. So I'll get clients who are like, well, I'm not looking until the spring, and they'll be calling me in maybe August or something. And instead of like going through a full pre-approval process, like I'll just call you back in a few months. I just kind of wanted to get my toes wet. And instead, they should be putting together a plan so that they're not shocked about payment then. They know how much they have to be saving. They can kind of budget ahead of time. So those are the major things. And not knowing about grants. There's a lot of grants that are available right now. I was going to mention that. Yeah, and so we try to educate them and the real estate agent as well that's referring them.
Can you name the grants as long as you're talking about them?
The major ones are IDA, which is through the state of Illinois, and there's one that's forgivable, which is $6,000 to the buyer. There's a $7,500 one that they pay back when they sell, and a $10,000 one, which is basically like an interest-free loan. They pay $83 a month until they pay it back.
Okay.
Now there's a new one that's been out recently that we've done a few already for, and it's been fantastic. It's really getting buyers that are kind of thinking they're going to wait to move right away. It's the SMART program through IDA, where they're giving 15% of your purchase price up to $40,000 to pay off your student loans in full. So I just had 2 of them close in the last 3 weeks. It's been just game changer.
Yeah,
you get so many people that were like, I don't know if I want to buy, but now it's like $30,000 pay off my student loans, and I get to get a house. And they give you $5,000 toward your down payment and closing costs, which you pay back when you sell the house or refinance. But so, I mean, it's a win across the board. And their rates, back in the day, rates for those programs were like 0.5% higher. Now they're almost market rate. And so you're not really overpaying either. It's pretty nice.
That's great. Yeah, and that's brand new. The SMART program.
The SMART program. And we don't know how long it'll last, too. Like, that's the thing. They had a similar program years ago, and it didn't last very long. And so it's kind of first come, first serve.
So how has the mortgage process changed now from when you were first starting?
Oh, man, from when I was first gosh, I don't want to date myself, but I started right out of college in 2006 at the very end, and I started with Countrywide, which is, many probably know. They've had they had their legal trouble. But when I came in, you were just taught what they wanted you to know. Like, I didn't know there was a secondary market. I didn't know wholesale, broker, nothing. And it was the wild, wild west. Like, I would sit there and be like, what is going on? Verifications and it was different. You didn't need an income. You didn't need a job. You could be in foreclosure buying houses, pay option arms. Like, I saw the very end of that stuff, and it was scary. So it's a lot different, but it's not like crazy difficult. A lot of people say, Or I hear them like, it must be very difficult. I can never qualify for a house. And they do. Not to say that we're going back to no income, no assets, but it's not terribly difficult. I've had clients, and we've joked about it in the past when I've done new loans for them, where they told me they got declined for a Sears card when they went to go buy like a dishwasher and stuff for the house, but they got the mortgage. And so it's not like terribly difficult, but it's not the same.
For those that don't know, how long does it take to get pre-approved?
I can do a pre-approval in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a few hours. If the client's willing to send me docs right away, I've done them in an hour.
Yeah.
But maybe worst case a day. We go through their situation, we go over their documents, what their goals are, kind of talk to them, and then send them a pre-approval with breakdown of what we would recommend, and go from there. But it's not a very long or difficult process.
Right. What advice would you give to a first-time home buyer?
First-time home buyer is make a list of questions that you want to know. Do some homework ahead of time before you call a loan officer, just so you can kind of get everything out. Like, if you want to know about down payment programs, if you want to know about minimum down or grants, or if you want to know about adjustable rates, like make a list of a few things. If you're talking to a loan officer that is kind of rushing you or doesn't want to go through the complete details, then talk to somebody else. It's good to talk to a couple people and get referrals. Don't just go online and pick whatever's cheapest or whoever you see the first ad for, because there's a lot of horror stories, as I'm sure you know from your side, where someone's like, oh, but online I can save $18. It's like, okay, that's a coffee, but you should probably think this through a little more. So talk to somebody you trust, and that gives you a good referral.
Right. And it may not be your coworkers, neighbors, cousins.
Yeah.
The list keeps going.
Exactly.
Because they bought in another state.
Or, no offense, but like a Redfin agent that's going to give you back, whatever it is, $2,000. But then you run through tons of issues and hoops, and you're pulling your hair out at the end. Sometimes you get what you pay for, too.
Yeah. What is the most rewarding part of your job working with your clients?
To see them at the closing. Sometimes it's usually stressful for them no matter what. No matter how easy the transaction really is for them, especially first-time home buyers, it's new, and it's the biggest transaction they're ever going to have. And for us at the end, when they could take that deep breath and they just they get their cookie basket at closing, which we send out like a gift, and they're usually so thankful and happy, and that's really great to see. And I joke with them a lot of times too. I'm like, now the time for the urine test.
What's the urine test?
They feel like they've had their blood drawn and all their stuff. Now you just got to pass the urine test. You're good to buy.
And you just closed with Elizabeth yesterday, and I would agree.
Yes.
The process can be stressful, even though our job is to make it a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And then the excitement builds because they
have moving too. They have furniture, and they have kids in school, and there's all these things that are going on beyond just me qualifying them for the mortgage, right? And so it's like when they get to that table, it's just such a nice relief for them. And a lot of times you see how really truly thankful they are when they send you like an email or call afterward, or write a good review, give them and ask them. Like that goes a long way, and it makes you feel good helping families. It's not just like we have a saying in our company. It's like, how many families have you helped this year? It's not like how many transactions or loan. How many families? And so, that goes a long way.
I like that. I like that a lot. Can you share some tips for someone who would like to improve their credit score?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, talk with a lender usually to kind of go over where you're at right now, know where you're starting from. Okay. That's the first thing. Because a lot of times you don't know what's on there. You might have a collection from a long time ago or something that pops up in your name. Keep your balances usually below a third if you can, but use your credit cards. Don't just have credit cards and never use them. Use it a little bit, pay it off if you can. Don't rack up, 90% of your balances, max balances. Those are the major things. I think knowing where you're at is really important, especially this day and age, because there are extra price hits now. Every 20 points your credit score moves is a price hit. So before, a 740 credit score and an 800 credit score was identical for pricing. And now 780 is the top tier instead of 740. So somebody with a 779 score is going to be a little bit of a hit for 780. And a 739 is going to be a bigger hit. And so somebody who has like, I think my score is 720-ish and their score is 699, huge difference between those two. Right. And so knowing where you really are, not just what online says or, what your Chase card says or something like that.
Right. What misconceptions do you think that people have about getting a mortgage that you could clear up for everybody?
That's a good question. Misconceptions. The down payment needing 20%. I still hear that.
It's difficult.
FHA versus conventional,
yeah.
like, well, I need to be a first-time home buyer, or, I've owned a home that disqualifies me. It's very difficult. It's not. Like, we ask for real basic stuff, right? Pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements. That's 80% of everything.
Repeat that for everybody.
Pay stub, last 2 pay stubs, or
Yep.
30 days of pay stubs, last 2 years W-2s, and last 2 months bank statements. That's the majority of everything.
Yep.
If you own a business, it's a little different when you tax returns, but you own a business, it's a quick call to your CPA, right? It's not the end of the world.
Right.
And if you work with a good loan officer, they're going to do all the due diligence up front. And so you're going to know. You're not going to be like, well, I don't know if I'm really approved and what's going to happen in 3 weeks. It's like you do the pre-approval, and if you get a good one, you're set to go. You don't have to worry anymore. It's like after that, it's just signing some documents and updating your paperwork. It's not a huge process where it's going to be painstaking.
Okay, shifting it a little bit to you as a loan officer, what is one piece of advice that you wish someone had given you when you started?
Oh, man. When I started, I'll never forget it. The manager at Countrywide drove a Ferrari.
Okay.
And I was like, oh,
that
man.
stuck out.
Dude. And like, no offense to the people, but I remember my friend Steve and I, we got in the business together, went to college together. Okay. And we went one day and we met with somebody, and they were running one of the branches. And we're like, wow, this guy is not sharp. Like, if this guy can be driving this car, what are we going to be able to do? So to me, it was more along the lines of like knowing that there's ups and downs. We don't get paid a base, right? It's based on what you do. And so if you do a good job, you can make good money, and you can also help a lot of people. And so I think it's like being aware of the ups and downs and knowing that you don't want to burn out, but you also don't want to get too comfortable.
Ups and downs in the industry.
In the industry of like closings and how much effort you're going to have to put in. And it's kind of knowing that nice balance and being able to budget your time and your money wise so that you don't have those huge ups and downs personally when the market changes. You can always kind of stay even and know where you are monthly and what you have to be for your budget personally.
Right.
So I'd say, someone that told me that like when the highs are high and you're closing an insane amount, don't go buy a brand new house and car immediately. Yeah. And when the lows are lows, don't put your head in the sand and like cry, woe's me. Try to keep your activity level the same and ride it out, and just know that if you put in the good work and you help people and you're truly doing a good job for people and want your referral partners to do well, then you'll do well as well.
So tagging off of effort and time, what does a typical day look like for you?
Oh, yeah. I'm not the average with the loan office. A lot of them are like very structured to the T and have like a routine. I spend a little too much time on the daily stuff, like getting caught up with like emails and, responding to people right away versus staying structured. But to me, usually it's trying to get at least an hour to hour and a half of prospecting, whether that's calling realtors that you work with, past clients, loan officers, and it's daily. So like Monday you call depending on the loan officer, but like I'll call realtors or referral partners. Tuesdays I'll call the current pipeline. So I'll call the client and then the realtors to give them an update.
Right.
If an attorney is needed, we'll also reach out to the attorney as well. But we try to do that every Tuesday so both sides are up to date. And then Thursdays we do people that are currently out looking. So your prospects, people that have pre-approvals, checking on them before the weekend. How's everything going? Going to see any cool places this weekend? Keep me posted, anything I can help you with. So structuring your days a little bit versus kind of winging it is the best way to go. And I try to stay to that maybe 80% of the time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get better at that. And then usually I'll cut off work around the time when my kids get home, and then I'll pick it back up around 8 o'clock or so to fill in whatever I've missed for the day and work another couple hours.
That's a long day.
Yeah, but I break it up. So I'll have a couple hours off in between. I'll go to the gym, spend time with the family, and then I'll try to catch up a little bit at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, an hour or two, whatever's needed, just so that the next day it's not overwhelmed. And
then you're still invested with the transaction and with your client and still in touch with them.
Absolutely.
And not.
I have a team that works with me, and they're amazing. They help on my files as well.
Right.
But yeah, I want to know what's going on in the files. I want to stay up to date. And I want to give the clients updates and the realtors so that they're not wondering what's going on. We never want to get to like a week before close and everyone's like, what's going on? Where's the file? Right? Like never.
Right. What do you enjoy most about your job?
I'd say the best part for me, there's two things. Staying active and busy. There's never a dull moment. Even when the market's slow, it's like, well, you're trying to figure out how you get more business, right? So the hustle and then the helping the families. Like it really does mean a lot. Like every now and then you'll get a client who like, I don't want to say feels entitled, but you know, they have options and they just know it, or they don't really care about it. They look at you more like a commodity, and that's accepted. Like I know that's going to be sometimes, but the majority of the families, they're like so thankful and helpful and happy that what we've done. And like to see that at the end and get calls afterward thanking us or referrals from them. Referrals mean a lot. You know, that's probably, well, it's like 95% of our business, my business at least.
Do you have a memorable story that you can share about a specific client?
Okay, give me a minute.
Putting you on the spot.
There's a lot of crazy stories.
Sure,
some
we
I
have
can't
those.
say.
What about the positives?
I've gotten pictures that were not supposed to be sent to me that were
really?
Where they think they're sending like a pay stub and they're sending something else.
Personal.
Personal. So I've gotten some weird ones like that. I remember there was one with a realtor that I work with, Randy, and I'm blanking on the client's name right now, but it was really difficult file, and they had gone to Bank of America before that, and the sellers were trying to back out, and they actually canceled it, and then they picked it back up and brought him back and said, if you can close in 2 weeks. And it was like a total nightmare. And they had a couple businesses. She was a nurse, and she had her own side business, and it was extremely difficult. And I remember like the day before, we still weren't clear to close, and they gave like a hard stop. We close this day, or we're keeping your earnest money and you're done. Like it was because they had such problems before that with the last bank that they were with.
Right.
And I remember the morning of, we got it clear to close, and it was like a 2 o'clock closing. We pushed it to 3, like the last second you could even do it, and it got closed. And I'm blanking on the name right now, but I remember Randy being like super happy, and the clients like overwhelmingly joyous. And I remember that day, it was a Friday. Like I remember like just going home, like, let's go out for dinner and celebrate to my wife, because I'm just like, that was just so difficult, and I'm just so happy it got done.
Yeah.
So there are times like that where you really go above and beyond, and you kind of feel for that client too, where you feel their pain and then you feel their joy and relief at the end.
Right.
So something like that, outside of some of the crazy stories that I probably can't share.
Right. That's what I was putting you on the spot. I've had some of those transactions too, where I know in the industry, and I've talked to other real estate agents that know that neighborhood loans can actually do some of the loans that maybe another lender would not touch.
Yeah, we directly to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. We underwrite in-house, which is great. And we try to make deals work. We're not going to do anything ridiculous, but we are going to go by the guidelines. We're not going to add overlays and extra things and extra hoops for the client that is not needed. And we use sensible underwriting. So, and the other thing too is, like I said, we do a lot of the due diligence up front. And so I can kind of go through, and if there's going to be a problem and headaches, as long as we have, not like that one where we had 10 days to close, but if we have a regular 3 to 4 weeks, we can sniff everything out up front. And so the client's on top of it. So when it gets to an underwriter, it's easy and done. It's not like we're not giving them a ridiculous file where then they're questioning a million things. It's laid out very nice and how it should be smooth. So
let's talk about community. Because you've talked about it a little bit. What kind of outreach do you do in the community or neighborhood loans as a business overall?
Neighborhood loans, I don't know specifics of, but I always see that they're doing something. They're always helping in charities, and they did a golf outing recently that raised a lot of money for charity. I was a part of, and that was really good.
They also do through like car.
Realtors.
Through the state.
We have several of those that we also sponsor as well. So neighborhood loans really has really good outreach with that. Myself personally, I try to go do as many of the events as I can, be part of that, buy a ticket, help that way. And then outside of that, depending on the realtors that I'm working with, whether they want to give away turkeys around Thanksgiving, or if they want to do something like for the Easter Bunny, where we have for parents to bring their kids, take pictures, or I've had them do Santa Claus type things. We'll help sponsor those things. So it's kind of dependent on who I'm working with and what they think is a good idea, but we're always open to like help them grow and then do well for the community at the same time. So it's kind of a win-win. And I live in Lincolnshire, and I work here in Downers Grove, but I also work sometimes out of our Wilmette office. So I'm kind of all over, and and my agents that I work with are, all over from the western suburbs to downtown.
The city. Yeah, exactly. Do you have a specific advice that you would give a new homeowner?
Put some money away at first for a rainy day. I know a lot of times it's going to be tight when you close, but when you're own a home, there's going to be some things, paint, you're going to want to change things, or furniture. It's like, I know you bought this home and you want to go maybe not shop and buy the greatest furniture immediately or, throw a big party, but like try to be at least cognizant of the fact that like things happen and you don't want to feel like house poor, and you don't want to feel like stressed by your house. You want to enjoy your house. So if you can, put a little away. Don't buy to your maximum necessarily. Find a comfort level and know that. And that's another thing, like with first-time home buyers I didn't mention before. I always ask, what do you want your payment to be? Is there a maximum that you want to stay below? Everyone will say like 0, but like realistically, if you find the perfect home, is how I say it, what's the maximum where you don't feel comfortable going over? Because I might be able to get you approved for a $700,000 home with $6,000 payment, but you may want no more than $3,000.
Right.
So like let's find that out, because I'm not going to just send you a blanket $1 million pre-approval if that's not something you're looking for, right?
Right.
So you got to be comfortable.
Right.
That's probably the best advice I can
instead of being miserable.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And also prepare for the rainy day.
Prepare.
Because something will happen.
Yeah, it's life, right? Things are going to happen. Yeah. So put a little away as well. And if you're comfortable, like if you're going to a purchase price and a payment, more importantly, that you're comfortable with, you're probably going to be putting money away anyway.
Right.
You're not, going to your bare maximum. So,
okay, personally, if you were not a loan officer, what do you think you would be doing?
I would love to be like a sports agent.
Really?
Something like that, yeah. When I was in college,
in what sport?
Oh,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Maybe basketball probably best, but it doesn't matter to me. I actually know a sports agent through poker, and him and his dad have like an agency, and it looks pretty cool. I'm trying to always ask him questions,
Yeah.
and like live vicariously through that. But that sounds like a really cool job.
I think that does sound cool. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be any good, but it'd be fun.
Do you have any upcoming events with Neighborhood Loans or anything that you're sponsoring?
We just had the President's Club, which was awesome, where depending on if you hit a certain tier with the company, they took us to a trip to Puerto Rico.
Oh, right.
Just came back from that, and that was more of an internal company thing, but that was amazing. And Neighborhood Loans takes really good care for you. Shout out to them. They really go above and beyond for people that work with them and that work hard for them. So that's been really fun, and every year, as long as you make it, it's been fantastic. Outside of that, I'm trying to think what we have coming up. I have a realtor now looking at another Easter Bunny thing. We did it last year, and it was really good. And so where we help get an Easter Bunny for the kids, and they'll come and we'll have like crayons and coloring and stuff like that. And she was just asking me about that. So, and then another agent was asking me about a billboard. Yeah. So maybe sponsoring one with her, being one side of the billboard and us on the other.
Oh.
So a little something to do. But,
what about technology? How has technology changed in the lending mortgage industry?
Well, there's a lot more. When I started, and even up till 2000, maybe 14-ish or so, we would have applications, and I would have to go through the 80 pages or so and highlight everywhere where the client and the name was, and put it in a FedEx package and overnight it to them with a return slip. And now, mostly everything is done online. So there's apps you can upload directly to our secure portal to get your pay stubs and bank statements. And there are other things too where you can click on and give us access to, like, so we can pull up verification of deposits and things like that, where you don't even have to get your bank statements. So a lot of that kind of stuff. And there's some underwriting that's done virtually now too, where you can get like automatic underwriting approvals, and those are a little easier and faster. And so kind of everything is moving in that AI directed way. So,
and COVID kind of pushed that a little bit forward. And then you just touched on underwriting. One of the great things that I know in the industry is that Neighborhood Loans has in-house underwriting. Mm-hmm. And that underwriting is open 7 days a week. So your process can move the transaction a little bit faster.
Yeah, a lot of companies don't, but we do all underwriting in-house. And even some companies that do, they might be very difficult or have additional guidelines and overlays, and we don't. Like, our underwriters are amazing. I don't have any issues with them. And a lot of times, like in a lot of companies, it's kind of like a fight between the loan officer and the underwriter, right? And here, we're all on the same team. It's like, what can we do to help this family, and how can we get it done as easy for them as possible? We're not what they call like stipping them to death, where we're asking for like a pay stub and then another one, and then we're asking for a bank statement, and then why did you deposit $18 on this day, and what was this withdrawal for? We're going to go just straight off the guidelines, and we're going to make sure that it's a complete loan and a full underwrite, but we are not going to go overboard for things that aren't needed.
Yeah.
And so I like that it's not a fight. It's it's like a team atmosphere of trying to make the deal work.
Right. Then speaking of teams, What are qualities that you look for in someone to join your team?
Oh, okay. Honesty, for sure.
That's a good
You
one.
know, because you don't see not that I know a lot of people that take shortcuts in the industry, but you know, in life and in sales, that does happen, right? So that's one thing. You know, I'd rather be honest or have someone be honest and say this deal doesn't work for this reason than, hey, let's try to do this sneaky thing to get it through to save one deal. I'd rather not get that deal. You know, my license is way more important than that.
Oh, and the stress of that.
Yeah, exactly. And then like to like what you do, have a smile. You know, a lot of times you're on the phone, I try to intentionally smile, even if it's a rough day, because you can hear that in somebody's voice. I learned that at Countrywide, actually, from this lady, Cindy, that she was like a trainer, and she was amazing, but she always smiled on the phone, and you could totally tell.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And, you know, knowing the guidelines and working hard. Like, it's not, you know, rocket science. Like, if you put in the work and you do the work and care, it shows. And so those are like the major things that I look for and I have looked for when someone's joining the team.
Yeah, caring is important. Someone that cares about the client.
Yeah. I mean, you could be great at your job and know all the guidelines, but if you just come to work and it's just a job and you don't care,
and you're
like,
pushing
to
the
me,
file.
I'd rather have somebody that wasn't quite as good but wanted to like help people, because that's what we do. And so
that shows their passion.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
shows their,
and that's the thing. Helping
values.
families is truly our number one thing. We do it through giving out mortgages, but we want to help people. And so I want somebody that like wants that client to have a good experience and be happy at the end, not just get a paycheck.
Right.
So,
what is one thing about your team that makes you proud?
Makes me proud. Work ethic would be one.
Yeah.
And our sense of humor. Like, we have a good sense of humor. We get along. It can be stressful and hard, especially when there's a lot in the pipeline, and we don't have like the biggest team. I don't have 10 people on my team or something like that. So we put in the work, but we have good attitudes about it. So I think keeping a positive attitude, even when we had, you know, months when we closed 18 million in a month, like there's 4 of us total, including myself. So me and 3 people, that's a lot for that. And we were still laughing and smiling and doing our calls and staying positive, even though it was pretty stressful.
So how do you foster a good, positive work environment?
I think some of it starts with my attitude, that I'm always like very, I don't say sarcastic, but in a way like funny, sarcastic. And I'll know that like Eileen or someone's having like a very difficult time. Like, how you know, I'll pick up the phone like, how are you on this beautiful sunny day? You know, like, and she knows I know, but it's just like a funny way. And, you know, same with Eugene. So I think it starts there, and just even when things are tough, like, okay, let's go through it one by one. Let's sit down and let's just go through it. And I think it starts there.
Yeah, I would agree. There's also studies about sense of humor in moments of stress and how that shifts from right brain to left brain.
Oh, it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. We try to always have that sense of humor, no matter what's going on. Even when things are bad, like I have good news or bad news, I'll be like, all right, give me the bad news. Like, we'll just always try to make it fun, no matter what's going on.
What emerging trend do you think that you're seeing now, or you're hoping to see, that will change the industry in the next 5 or so years?
Ooh, that's a good one. Emerging trend.
AI.
I think you stumped me.
AI.
Well, AI, but I don't know much of how it's like affecting us. I think like it's affecting us more on the marketing side and getting their name out, and like people doing a really good job on like Instagram and like capturing
social media,
capturing leads like that. You know, I need to do more of that and learn how AI can help me with that. As far as like getting the loans done, I'm sure there's stuff in the background that's happening that might look scary to me if I knew about it, really.
Okay.
But I don't know. Like at one point, I think Amazon was talking about getting into mortgages.
Yeah, they were.
I think they saw about how much losses they might have taken, and maybe they didn't. So I think at that point when I heard that, I'm like, ooh, that kind of sounds scary. Right? Like Amazon. Like
Zillow, I think, was trying.
Zillow, I know, has tried. I don't know how well they've done with that.
Yeah, I don't think they're.
That one I don't. It doesn't scare me as much. Amazon, for whatever reason, scared me at the time, because I'm like, man, they can do anything. You know, like I'm gonna go work for Amazon. I guess
apparently not.
Maybe in 2 years they're gonna force me there.
Right.
So you know, something like that, catastrophic, where something takes over the industry and we're obsolete or something. But I haven't seen that. But I think to your point, the capturing leads through social media, using AI, using like TikTok and Instagram and whatever else people are using, I need to do a better job of and do more of. But that would be something that I'd like to learn more and make more applicable to my daily.
What about green energy? Because of the shift, what was it, February 1st or 2nd, with the Multiboard 8.0, they added in different fixed and personal property, including solar panels.
Solar panels. They can be difficult, and I think that'll make it easier. And I think we've started to learn more and had more of them come up because, a couple of years ago, I think I had my first one, and it was like at the end of the world. We're like, what do we do with this? And was there a lien on the title? And because some of them are leased, some of them are owned.
Oh, right.
It depends on the title and how it's on the title. And I had one recently where the sellers bought it in a foreclosure, but they didn't realize that there was still a huge lien on it, or I don't know how it even got through, but the company wanted like $60,000 or $70,000 left over or something. Like, we don't know anything about this.
The solar panel company wanted $60,000.
Yeah, and they're like, we just bought this from an auction. Like, I don't know anything about it. And so they're selling it now, like flipping it to my buyer, and my buyer then is like responsible, and they're trying to pass it along, and like, so that was like a big thing. So I feel like the more stuff with that on the contract, that it may make it easier, and maybe we'll learn more from it. I don't do a ton of, or at least I haven't done a ton of them yet. I think maybe I've done 5 or 6 in 3 years or something. I just had one and we closed it, but I think a lot of it has to do with how it's on title and if it's leased or if it's owned,
right?
And how that works, and transferring the payments to the buyer, or buying out, or having or mixture, seller paying some of it, buyer paying some of it. So yeah, it's a little tricky.
What's the most difficult part, would you say, of the mortgage industry, or maybe your specific job? And then how do you overcome it? How do you tackle it?
Most difficult part, well, okay, so in the industry in general, I think it's the leads, getting, because most loan officers, at least from my experience, well, it depends where you work, like if online places, it's coming in through online. You work in a bank, they're usually walking in. But if you're like a mortgage banker, like ourselves, on the wholesale side, most of it is referral based, and so it's like staying in front of your referral partners, bringing them value, right? It's not just like anybody can call them and say, I can close your loan, and right, most loan officers, they'll be able to figure out how to close your loan, right? Whether it's super easy or a little difficult, they'll usually get it done, right? It's like, but about bringing value, and so like not only bringing value and honing your skills so that you can make it easy for your client and you represent them well, your referral partner, because it's also them. If they refer you and you're rude to the client, or it takes too long, it looks bad on them. It's not only just honing your skills to do that, but it's like finding referral partners and being able to tell them your story and how you're going to bring value to them, right? And that's not always easy, calling people and so let's go for a cup of coffee or something, right? And I want to get your business, right? When they have 30 other people trying to get their business. Right. And then also once you're working with somebody, hanging on to that relationship, continuing to bring the value, staying in front of them, helping them however they can, whether that's marketing or, showing up for a party or helping sponsor something. There's a lot of different ways. So
I also think with the client, it's managing expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It's listening to them. It's also then communicating in a way that is effective and efficient.
The number one thing that I hear from real estate agents when I'm talking to them about like what aren't they getting right now and what could be better is their communication.
Yeah.
Like the loan officer I work with, he closes, but communication is like a big thing. I want to know, and that's why we do that Tuesday call every week, whether there's good news, bad news, or no news, you'll hear from us, and that way everybody knows where it's at. Has the appraisal been ordered? Is title in? Do I foresee any issues? How's the approval looking? Everything. We'll go through it so that both sides are up to date. And it goes a long way. And then when I call for pre-approval, if you have a client going out with the pre-approval, when they call me and say, okay, I just got an offer from your client, and they want to know, have you seen pay stubs or whatever? I tell them that, and it's like a breath of fresh air. You do? Really? Wow. Okay, I can't wait. Because they know then that they're going to have that communication piece and that it's not going to be a mystery at the end what's going on.
What advice would you give somebody who's looking to buy in this current market because it shifted?
Yeah. Well, I think one is kind of what I think a lot of them have learned already is that the rates seem to, we hope that they'll drop a little bit, and it seems like, the consensus is they'll probably drop a little bit this summer, but it's not 3% anymore, and it probably will never be 3%. Even if it drops, what are we talking, 5s, right? It's still going to be more of like a realistic number. And so I think like knowing what the payment looks like now and not what it was in 2019 or something like that, mortgages and properties are more expensive now, and coming to terms with that is a big thing. And then knowing your budget and your comfort level and talking about that. A lot of times clients don't know that. Oh, I'm paying $1,800 in rent right now. Well, what do you feel comfortable with? Well, I'd love to be at $1,500. Well, that's not going to happen,
It's not
right?
gonna
Let's
happen.
talk about it. And, and then at the end, a lot of times if it's a couple on the call, say, I don't like tell them it's homework, but I say, listen, I'm going to send you over this pre-approval, but you guys should definitely talk about what you feel comfortable with and what's the maximum you feel comfortable with putting down, and then come back to me, give me a call this week, and we'll talk about it so I can adjust accordingly. And that's a big thing.
Yeah, and there's going to be fluctuations in the economy.
Yeah, and they don't talk about it a lot of
Yeah.
times. Or maybe they've mentioned it, but it's like,
Right.
we don't have a specific number. You should
Right.
have that specific number.
Right. Okay. What about the differences of an condo association versus a single-family home? Do you have conversations with clients about what to expect when they buy into association?
That's a big thing for me. I do a lot of condos, actually.
Yeah.
I think I'm the number one in the company in condos.
That's great.
And that's a big thing, and it's a big selling point that I have, is because we underwrite the condo here in-house as well. We do everything up front. Our condo team is ordering documents right away. We're going through and underwriting it right away. And a lot of banks don't. They'll do an underwrite of the client, and then it'll go to their condo department, who will then re-underwrite the condo specifically. And then you're 3 weeks in, and you find out that, X bank wants less renters in the building. And now you've gone through this whole process.
It's the percentage that is allowed.
And some will have different, some will have overlays, some will want different type of insurances, some will have problems with decks and bylaws. And we go, again, straight off of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines, and we do it all in-house. And so that's a big selling point. I can't even count how many turndowns I get from, Chase is my number one, but any bank, turndowns that they couldn't do the condo for whatever reason, and we come in and save the day. It's a lot. It's probably 20% of my business.
Right.
I get a lot of them. And so, I have that conversation. And also the bigger part of that is when they're telling me, well, I might be looking at a townhouse or maybe a single family home. I'm like, well, start your search and send me 2 or 3 properties that you like, so I can get in a sense of what that HOA is going for. What's the high end? What's the low end? Because it could drastically change your payment. I mean, we're not talking about what's your max purchase, $330 or $360. What's the max payment? Because you could find a place that has a $700 HOA and a $250, same purchase price, right?
Right.
That's going to be a big difference. So I definitely have that talk up front, and we talk about the HOA, but the bigger part is the fees that come with it and how it affects their budget.
For those that have never purchased in a condo or don't know, what are the things that you would specifically talk about? Because you mentioned the bylaws, the decks, maybe in the budgets. What are the concerns on your end looking at those things?
Yeah, good question. Any type of litigation, current,
That's a good
special
one.
assessments that are coming up or
Yep.
just started. If there's any, well, this would usually be already in a lawsuit, but any health hazards, so balconies need to be redone or something like that. If you're an investor buying in a building, how many rentals are in the building currently?
And then vice versa. How many investors? What percentage
or
of the
how many?
Yeah.
How does one person own more than 10% of the
Right.
units in the building? And then if it's new construction, has the HOA been turned over? Are you the first one in, or has anyone else bought in the building yet?
Right.
Those are the major items, and that's mostly it. We have a great condo desk. They do a fantastic job. They're so on top of everything, so they make my job really easy. If I'm even questioning something, it's an email over, and they tell me right away.
What is the risk factor then in new construction for someone buying?
I think if you're
Is there a risk factor?
yeah,
That's a better question.
The first in, some investors will not want to be first in. So if it's a building of
Right.
20 and you're the first buyer, some will not want that. They'll want to wait until it, or if there's a certain amount of the common area that's already built. So if the common area, the hallways or the gaming room or the pool, whatever, if it's not fully built yet, some will want a certain percentage completed before they'll let you close on yours. So there's a few
that's good to
guidelines
know.
depending on if it's Fannie or Freddie. But yeah.
What is a success story that you have had personally that you would like to share?
A personal success story.
Yeah. Besides a client, because we talked a little bit about client getting them to the closing table.
With mortgages or something outside it?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. One easy one that comes up with the business is in I did 3 straight years of, I think it was 2 straight years or 3 straight years of, it was definitely 2 straight years at least of $100 million in volume. And I think the 3rd year I might've gotten there, I was just short.
That's amazing.
So that's something that I never could have imagined, I could never imagine.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was just fantastic to go through and then do again.
Do you think you're a goal person?
Yeah. Yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm also like competitive.
Yeah.
That's like the big thing. It's like, especially as neighborhood loans has grown and we've added more branches and some heavy hitters in other states. It's just like, I don't want to lose my spot.
Right,
you know?
right.
Like, so I like to compete, and
Yeah.
that gets me probably more than the money. And even just, I love to help families, but even more so than that, to see the number versus somebody else and try to beat them, you know, in a friendly way. But that's one thing.
Okay, what about success story?
In my personal life,
Yeah.
I'd have to say my family.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's
I
kind
think
of
so.
cliche, but like you know, having a very supportive wife that works really hard and 2 wonderful kids that are like excelling and doing great. It makes it all worth it, you know, when you can do that. So I think that's like something I don't take for granted. I think at one point, I don't say I took for granted, but when things were super busy in 2020, it's easy to kind of lose track of that when you're working like 14 or 16 hours in a day, you know. And now I have a much better balance. So, and that's something I'm really happy that I've adjusted.
Yeah, and they're there to support you and help ground you and
absolutely
love you and
exactly
all of that.
Exactly. So it's good to be there for them.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you, Matt.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate you having me.
Me too. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Thank everyone for listening. I am here with Matt Rosen from Neighborhood Loans. My name is Patrick O'Brien. I'm a real estate agent in Chicago with Dreamtown Realty. Thank you.